Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Mindful Constitution podcast. I'm super stoked to talk to Illie today, who is founder and CEO of Live Healthy, which is Healthillie, which is her sort of curated, non-toxic marketplace, which is amazing. She's also a clean living and ingredient advocate, so she's constantly talking about being an informed consumer, because I think that's pretty imperative these days, unfortunately. And so, yes, I'm super excited to dive into so much today. Sober curiosity, clean living, systems that disempower us along the way, all the things. So welcome, my friend. How are you?
Thank you. I'm so excited to deep dive into all things. I haven't done a podcast in like a hot minute. I've been kind of like a recluse, but we're
Yeah.
back and we're ready to.
Yes. Yeah, just the rest stuff. Let's do this. I'm excited, so excited. Like I said, I've been following you for a while, so it's been really inspiring to hear you speak out about a lot of the things that I also agree with, and I can't wait to dig in. So, for starters, did I
Thank
introduce you
you.
correctly? I feel like I always fumble my way through the
Think
introduction. So
you
did I
did.
hit on
Yeah, yeah.
but
You
all
hit it
right.
all. You're good.
Yeah. So, okay, for starters, I want to talk about, I know you started in the fitness industry, but can you share a little bit about how you kind of grew your passion for non-toxic living through your own story?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it kind of just happened where I think how a lot of people, I think, fall into the holistic realm is it really happens on accident, but also kind of on purpose. I've always been fit. I've always been an athlete, if you will. I ran track and soccer throughout since pretty much I was 5 years old. And so I've always been athletic. I always had like the quick metabolism and I've always been the skinny girl. And fitness was always my outlet. I became a personal trainer and I was working at some of the best gyms in the US, like Equinox and Lifetime Athletic. And I really thought that this was going to be my thing. This was going to be my passion. And although it was also the beginning of my most chronic health problems that I was having. So everything from a face full of acne to chronic bloating, fatigue. I had eczema really bad all over my face. I would like pluck it off, like flaking it off.
Mm.
I had really chronic migraines almost on a daily basis. So I was really going through it internally, and obviously a little bit out externally with my acne and stuff. But, I was physically fairly fit. So, you always hear the comments of people like, oh my God, I wish I could eat like you and look like you. And I would always just say, it's because I work out. I can eat anything I want. It's because I work out. And clearly that wasn't the case because, I felt so terrible. So, of course, like most people, we go to our doctors. And I went to a dietitian, I think, before anything, and they recommended me go to a doctor because they're like, well, your diet looks perfect. And at that time, I was really just eating, meal prep, chicken, broccoli, salmon, rice, a couple of veggies here, greens powders, a protein powder, a pre workout, like really the basics of what most fitness people have on a daily basis.
Mm.
And of course, my doctors had no idea what was wrong. I went to specialists. They had no idea what was wrong. And eventually, I just kind of had enough because I was struggling so much. And that's when I got a little bit more inquisitive about the why. Like, why am I feeling this way if I'm so fit and I'm so active? Like, what's happening here? So I kind of had to go against my own biases at this time to try to figure out like, okay, maybe it is what I'm eating. Maybe these supplements aren't as clean as I thought, maybe the things that I'm using on a daily basis, the Bath and Body Works and the Victoria's Secret sprays and all these
I
things.
got Victoria
Maybe
love
my diet
spell.
isn't the most nutritious.
Do you
Yeah, my
remember
love spell was not doing it for me. Yeah, no, trust me, I remember those all too well. I can almost smell it now just thinking about it. But
I
yeah,
know.
like that was just it wasn't, I had to really try to figure it out.
Mhm.
And through that is when I kind of fell into holistic health and really what clean living looked like because that was totally, alien to me. I had no idea what that meant. So now here I am around five years deep into my health journey.
Yeah, I know you've seriously grown such a brand through speaking out and kind of calling out brands too a lot, which I've seen you do often where
Yeah.
you're sharing like things that market as healthy and then actually looking deeper into the ingredients. And how do you feel doing that? Do you get a lot of backlash from
Oh,
brands that
yeah,
you
I get a lot of backlash. Yeah, to say the least, I get a lot of backlash when it comes to those. I mean, I did take a big break from doing that. I mean, I'm ready to go back into it because there's just more and more crap that's being promoted. And
Mhm.
I feel really good about my own brand that I've created and brands that I've brought on to live healthfully that I feel really good about. And it took, years of research to get to this place. So it just, you start to really realize how tied people are to how they look physically, that they are willing to struggle with the health implications of what that might look like because they know that they can go the Western medicine route and just get, birth control or Accutane, spirulactane, Ozempic for any type of issues that they might have. Instead of just like looking at the products that they're consuming on a day-to-day basis, like it doesn't have to feel hard, it doesn't have to be fear mongering. But yeah, when I first started, I got a lot of, I mean, to this day, I still get a lot of backlash about it, but I think it says more about, the state of our health in general that people are, arguing with me over a protein powder that has glitter in it. Like it's so unnecessary and I just don't understand like am I the problem or is it these companies that are creating it? Like who are we really mad
Yeah,
at here?
right. I know it's wild when you're just saying, even saying the simplest things like focusing on natural, non-artificial ingredients and clean products
Mhm.
is, best for our health, which seems like it would be common sense, but it is the age of outrage culture. So
Yeah,
people
it
don't like
really
to hear
is.
anything that goes against what they're doing, even if it's very obvious that it would be harmful or that there's better alternatives. And what you said really resonated and stood out to me about, wow, people care so much about the way that they look or place so much more importance on that even if you look healthy but feel like shit, that's okay. It's like we're willing to feel like shit as long as we look okay, in a lot of cases. And
Yeah, and then I also think another thing on top of that, which I've been seeing, because I recently made a video on, popular influencers like Alex Earl, who's obviously conventionally very beautiful. So for her to struggle with acne, it's like, oh, like something must be wrong because she's so pretty and so skinny, but she has acne. Like that just must be, wonder why she would have that. And people overlook that you can be skinny, but that doesn't mean that you're healthy. Like those two things don't equal each other, right? Like I was the skinniest I was and the fittest I was with the worst health outcomes. I was
yeah,
literally borderline hypothyroid and I was really struggling with like borderline autoimmune problems that if I didn't get it under control, I would 100% have some sort of autoimmune condition, if not multiple. So people really get very confused with conventionally skinny, pretty people that are struggling with health problems because it can't be what they're eating because look how skinny they are, look how fit they are. So we almost like turn a blind eye to some of the fittest and skinniest and prettiest people having health problems because they must be an anomaly. It can't be what they're eating, it can't be what they're using.
yeah, I know. I saw that post you did on Alex Earl about what about the fact that you are constantly posting about partying and getting wasted and eating whatever you want, and like that can't, no one is even mentioning that maybe you should address yourself more holistically in some of the ways that you live
Hmm.
because that could be contributing to it. It's more so just geared towards Accutane as the solution, which is sad when you see, I think you mentioned it as well, that you see people who have so many people following them and reading about what they're doing, thinking, okay, well, that's what this person who's struggling with this is doing. Well, we're not highlighting any root causes that are contributing to it. And just, I mean, Accutane is a serious drug too with tons of side effects. So it seems like the logical thing to do would be look at lifestyle first and see what you can do there. But
Yeah, and I mean, I see it on a micro level where if I'm struggling with something and I take something and it makes me feel better, people want that item. So I can't imagine someone with multi-million followers where she's really struggling with acne, which many people do. And she says, well, I've
Mhm.
been taking this and now my skin is clear. I can't imagine that that alone won't influence thousands of people to go and do the same because now they idolize somebody that they see on the internet, or they want to be pretty, or they, whatever the case may be. And then the truth of the matter is nobody gives the full picture of things. So they're not
Mhm.
saying what the downsides are to the lifestyle that I'm promoting. No one's saying the downsides to this medication that I'm taking, because it is a serious medication to take, and it shouldn't just be something that dozy on into your doctor and be like, put me on spirulactane or Accutane, and I leave and I'm happy. Like, people struggle really bad with problems well off of Accutane and spirulactane. So we're just not getting the full picture when it comes to a lot of things, from our food system to our health to, and
Yeah.
now influencers make it a little bit harder because how are we supposed to be transparent, and
Right.
people don't want to be.
Yeah, and I think too it plays on people's desire for kind of immediate gratification and quick fixes. When you see somebody who's
Mhm.
promoting Accutane instead of lifestyle change and it's somebody with millions of followers, you're like, "Okay, cool, I can take that," instead of like maybe look at my relationship with partying and alcohol and food and stress and like all of the things I'm using on a daily basis. This seems much easier. And people
Yeah.
can kind of program themselves and to rationalize it. And, it's easy to avoid
Yeah.
doing the work that way.
Well, the thing is too is that people have built empires off of a certain brand identity. So clearly her brand identity is this party Miami girl. She has a new podcast, Hot Mess, and everything. She's just messy and having fun. So if she would lose a big part of her fan base, but maybe not, right? But it is a risk. But like now you kind of have to double down on this lifestyle that you're promoting to,
Mhm.
unfortunately, millions of people. So it is interesting to see, but that's happening on a that the thing is you can obviously target one person, which is obviously it's very easy because she's in the limelight, but this is happening on a micro level every single day with the people that we follow. It's happening with, friends, and if you have a friend that's been using something for a while and they're like, this has really been working for me, you want to take that thing. So it really happens with every single person that you follow and that you can potentially influence you. So it comes
Mhm.
back to, this is why I'm always telling people on my social media, is you need to trust you more than anybody, more than your doctor, more than your friend, more than these influencers, definitely more than me. I mean, I'm no different than anybody else, but you need to trust yourself when it comes to what you put in your body, what you're feeding your family, what you feed yourself, what you use every single day.
Yeah, because not only do the systems require us to be more vigilant, I feel like, and informed, but everybody's different. So what works for someone else might not
Mhm.
work for you. And the best tool that you have is your own curiosity and like willingness to experiment and trust your intuition and start to listen to our bodies more. I feel like we're so disconnected from the symptoms of our bodies. Like just even when I think back on drinking and being like feeling shitty regularly and just being hungover and just kind of accepting it and that's what it is, or just even little things like paying attention to slight irritants after eating something or ingesting something. I feel like for the most part, a lot of people don't really tune into that. And we aren't as connected to the messages from our body as we could be. But
Yeah,
I was
I
going to ask
totally agree with that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to, as someone who would be considered an influencer and you're seeing a lot of other wellness influencers, what your the most frustrating thing is for you. And would you say it's that people just kind of promote things that maybe aren't the best and it's like shown to millions of people? Or what do you think is the most frustrating aspect of like influencer
Yeah.
wellness culture?
Yeah, I think my biggest issue with just being an influencer in general is that now you're almost obligated to be a professional in anything and everything. So, if political issues arise, all of a sudden I'm supposed to be a professional and put my opinion out there on things that, I'm sorry, these are people have committed their whole lives to understanding politics and history and all these things. So now when it comes to promotion of products, it's the same exact thing. You can pay an influencer $10,000 to promote a product that they have never touched. They have never
Mhm.
used it, they've never touched, they don't know the ingredients inside of it. And when I first started influencing, which is also kind of by accident, I really just started sharing my acne journey and people started following me because of that. I found this new obligation where I'm like, if I'm promoting things to people, shouldn't I know what's in it? Like, shouldn't that be how it is? So,
Yeah. Should I
I
have
took on a lot of
integrity?
affiliates that yeah, like shouldn't I know what I'm promoting exactly? But a lot of people don't have that approach, and a
Mm.
lot of people don't care because the checks can be great, depending on where you're at. But I felt this overwhelming obligation to really understand what I'm consuming and what I'm putting out there, and that's obviously how I started my own business. So that's literally how I got there. I just felt like I can't be a wellness influencer and I can't promote products every single day and collect a paycheck promoting products if I don't know what they do. I don't know what the ingredients are. The ingredients feel ambiguous. So, yeah, I think my biggest issue with influencing is that if you the right check can really turn anyone into a quote unquote professional in anything. So now you have people who have never touched a supplement a day in their life. Now they can create entire supplement lines, or
Mhm.
and then those people who don't know anything about supplements can pay other people that don't know anything about supplements to promote their products. And now, because everybody's using it, it's just, birds of a feather flock together. Everybody
Mhm.
wants to consume the things that everybody else is consuming. And that's how things become popular. And then I have to sit there and I have to review it. And then I'm somehow the bad guy for, reviewing a product that isn't good. And everyone's mad at me because they were convinced it was. So
Yeah.
it's like a one big vicious cycle. But yeah, that's like really my biggest thing is like, as influencers, we have to be the professional, but a lot of people don't take that job seriously. And it really is frustrating because I take my job so seriously.
Yeah. It's obvious that you do, just in my time following you, and literally use your page often to be like, all right, let me see what she thinks about this one. I'll check her, make sure that. And I remember
Yeah.
specifically when you were highlighting that green powder that everyone is always advertising on TikTok. I forget which one it was, but it's like a big influencer powder. And I was like, ooh, I bet
Yeah,
she's
the
getting
bloom
some
powders.
Bloom. Yeah. I think it was that. Is it called Bloom?
Yeah, that was a rough time.
Yeah, I was like, I bet
Yeah, it
she's
was bloom.
getting a lot of shit for this.
Yeah,
But it
people
is.
were just angry and it's 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 unfortunate because first off, it's not my brand. I don't know anything about the brand. I don't know anything behind the history of the brand. Like I don't know much. But if you're going to ask me to review a product and I look at the product and I'm like, why is this the most popular product right now? And I'm so confused and I share my confusion, but somehow people are mad at me instead of the people creating the product. Like I didn't create
Yeah.
this product. I'm just reviewing it based off of what I've learned. And to me, it's not up to my standard. And that's okay. There's other brands that are, but because they're not as popular or, there's not a big influencer pushing them, like people have to understand the things that are trendy and popular are paid to be trendy and
Yeah.
popular. So you're not
Yep.
going to see every brand all the time. Like we just don't have a budget to push out products to every single person on the planet. Like it's just not going to, like, it's not reality for most brands.
Mhm. What do you think is the triggering element of just sharing the truth and pointing out, like, okay, this isn't maybe as healthy as you thought it was? And I see it often, even with, talking about the food system or, the healthcare system. Is like when you bring to light, like this happens with products that aren't maybe as legitimate or healthy as they seem, but also with like corruption within systems. I feel like it's blatantly in our face a lot of the time. Like, okay, the healthcare system, the food system, big
Yeah.
pharma, the government, like they all operate with private interest and conflicts of interest. And it seems like a lot of times, if you kind of talk about that, it's very triggering for people. And I want to hear your thoughts on why you think that is, because it seems like we have plentiful evidence to show us. Like, these
Mm-hmm.
systems do not have our best interests at heart. And even if it's not intentionally nefarious, it's definitely like profit over health. So how do people get so defensive of that, or why do you think they do?
Yeah, I'm a big analogy girl, so the way I look at stuff like that is like you're trying to tell your friend that, her boyfriend is a cheating,
Mm.
lying, narcissistic scumbag. Like if she's not ready to let go of him, there's literally nothing, and then you end up being the enemy. It's like,
Mhm.
how do and I've been in that situation. I've been on both sides of the spectrum. I was somebody who was, super fit and you couldn't tell me anything. Like you think you were going to tell me that my, my row of Oreos that I was eating every night was bad for me. Meanwhile, I have six-pack abs and I look great. No, you couldn't tell me anything until I reached a point where my health was so overwhelmingly bad that it was
Mhm.
unavoidable that I had to do something. Um, and also it was a whole other thing that I felt I was like, it happened because I was younger. It happened when I was younger. So because I was so young, I still had that mindset of like, I don't want to be on medication. Like, I'm just so young. Like, I'm only 22 years old, 23 years old. I thank God I was much younger. But a lot of the people, usually it's young people who are still hot and fit and young, and they don't see the health implications. They usually, now I'm 30. So now when I'm 30, you have people my age that are like, oh my God, now I get it. Or they're
Mhm.
much older people who they're just so set in their ways and they just don't understand. And yeah, so I really do compare it to like, her man's is trash, but she loves him and she wants to stay with him. And until she sees it for herself, like I cannot convince everybody. You're either
Yeah.
unfortunately going to have to learn the hard way, or you're actually going to trust your friend, which we all know, we've all been there, it never happens.
Yeah.
And just hopefully you figure it out on your own. But yeah, people have to really get there. And I think I struggled with that a lot when I first started sharing because I had such a big relief. And I was like, it's not something I did. It's just like I changed my lifestyle and it's very hard to get people. There's a lot of elements to it. There's people are not in like the healthiest place, in a mindset, like emotionally to get out of their unhealthy habits. People have a very emotionally strong bonds to the food that they eat. People are also traumatized by diet culture. So anything that involves them getting rid of something automatically feels scary and restrictive and diety when that's really just not the case at all. But people unfortunately have to learn. And a lot of the time it's the hard way. I can't sit here and try to convince everybody. Either I sit with you or I don't. So sometimes I really land with people and sometimes most of the time I don't. So
Yeah.
it's whatever side you want to be on.
Yeah, it is funny where you realize it is best when you reflect on yourself and think like, okay, before I was ready to change, would I have wanted to hear this? Or before I did actually invest in my own health, was I paying attention to the pharmaceutical industry and the food industry and the,
Yeah.
cross mingling of all of that? And so it's just when you're in the field of health and wellness, you're more invested in that. And it was interesting because I did hear someone the other day say, like, if it doesn't directly impact me and my health, I don't really care with regards to kind of like larger agendas of the different
Mhm.
industries, um, and the corruption that resides within. And, I was like, hey, I mean, I kind of get it because I've gone down so many rabbit holes of like, this shit is messed up. And it is almost feels like burdensome
Yeah.
to start realizing how much accountability you have to take for yourself because of the way the systems are structured. Like, really, they thrive when we're not, So it's like you have to be your biggest advocate. And that is a responsibility that I think a lot of people are like, maybe not ready for, maybe don't
Yeah.
want to. And so it is pretty wild. But I wanted to ask too, which is a little backtrack, but when you are selecting products for your uh, virtual marketplace, Live Healthily, can you share what your criteria is for accepting?
Yeah. I mean, I do like to keep it very simple. So obviously we have so many different supplements. We have over 400
Mm.
products. So it's over 50 brands. So we're always bringing on new brands. We have everything from like toothpaste. So we do fluoride-free toothpaste. Fluoride has
Mm.
been found to be a neurotoxin. So we use toothpaste alternatives like hydroxyapatite, which helps remineralize the teeth without having to use fluoride. And it's way more effective than fluoride without the toxic side effects. So that's like one example. Like we don't, use fluoride. We do a lot of shampoos, conditioners, body
Mhm.
washes, creams, lotions, skincare in general, and those are not allowed to have any type of synthetic or ambiguous fragrance.
Mhm.
No potential hormone disruptors. So you can't have any of those like parabens and phthalates, just not allowed, and that goes the same with any type of home fragrances and candles that we have. Um, they have to be pure and made with all natural ingredients, but also be effective, right? Because that's really important. I've tried so many brands that are like just, organic oils and things, and it just doesn't hit the same. So I make sure I test everything so that it's like great and works
Mhm.
well, and they're actually effective skincare. And then also we have supplements. So the biggest thing with supplements is that it's no artificial dyes, no artificial sweeteners, no artificial flavors, no ambiguous flavors. Like flavors have to come from somewhere and it should be on the label. People should know that their, vanilla protein powder is coming from vanilla. And then even types of like capsules and things that we have, there's no unnecessary fillers, colorings, etc. The ingredients have to make sense for the product. So yeah, that's like really the main criteria. So I go through every single brand on my own and I look through everything to make sure that it makes sense, the brand has good values, and of
Mhm.
course that they're effective. So I make sure I try everything for, a couple months before we bring it on, and then they make it onto Live Healthily and then you can shop everything right there.
Yeah, I know, I love it. I've definitely peeped it and gotten some stuff too from there, so I feel like it's so nice to be able to know that you can feel confident with what you're getting because it is a lot of work that you go through to um, vet the products and a lot of
Yeah,
integrity
because
too.
even when you go to, like, Whole Foods or something, like, you go to Whole Foods, you go to, Sephora, like, they have a clean section, or even Whole Foods you think is clean, and there's just things on there where I'm like, "This is not clean." So, I really try to take the thinking away from the consumer. Like, we have so many other things to worry about thinking
Mhm.
about, that the last thing should be, like, reading every single thing that you try to buy. So it really is a safe place for people to just shop without having to read every single label to be like, oh my God, does it have this and hormone disruptor here and artificial dyes here and artificial, so like it's just none of that. So I even
Mhm.
Whole Foods, I catch myself like I could spend hours there just reading labels just to make dinner. It's like
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah, totally. I agree fully. It's just nice to have those spaces where you can feel confident, not having to worry about it. And I know another thing that you've talked about a lot too is kind of this movement of, no good or bad food and fighting against
Hmm.
that a little bit where um can I guess that's what I was going to say. What can you tell me more about like how that philosophy doesn't
Yeah.
really resonate for you specifically and like what your issues are with it?
Yeah, that is one that gets me in trouble a lot of times because obviously we have a epidemic of people that struggle with their food and they struggle with diets and dieting. So when you tell people, well, you can eat anything as long as it's moderation, that would have made sense maybe back in the 50s, the 60s, the
Mm.
70s, where highly processed foods weren't as prevalent as they were today. There wasn't a McDonald's or a Starbucks or, all these things at every single corner everywhere throughout America.
Mhm.
Where today it's much harder to get away from processed foods, and the foods are literally created to be indulged. They're not
Right.
created to be in moderation. So what we used to consider, highly processed foods and junk food used to be cookies and chips and cakes and brownies. And of course, I would like to assume most people aren't eating those things every day, But what we're finding now is that those same processed additives that would make those foods considered unhealthy are also being found in our protein powders, in our pre-workouts, in our milks, in our
Mhm.
yogurts, in like other foods
Healthy
that were
foods.
supposed to be healthy. You know, you can find additives and colorings in cheese. You can find additives and colorings in yogurt and milk and pasta and literally anything. So where do we draw the line at moderation?
Yeah.
And how do we know what level is too much? We just simply don't, because it's in everything that we're consuming. It's not just
Mhm.
in the quote unquote junk food or conventional junk food. It's not just in the cookies.
Yeah.
We have protein powder brands that have literally cookies in it. So is
Yeah.
that necessarily healthy because it has
Yeah.
protein? No. So yeah, I'm not a fan of like the no food is good or bad, because there is food that has been linked to, you know, acne, IBS, gut
Chronic
issues,
diseases.
migraines, behavioral problems. Like those are bad foods, and it's okay to label things what they are without, promoting diet culture.
Right. Yeah, I think that's where because I've heard both sides of it too, and I have friends in the like anti-diet kind of nutrition space where they're in the intuitive
Yeah, and
eating.
I'm anti-diet, don't get me wrong. I hate diets.
Oh
I do
yeah,
not follow a diet.
right. Which is what I think like there's like the like no labeling of food as good or bad, because sometimes I feel the same way where I'm like, but I feel like some of these are bad. Like our country is going through an obesity epidemic.
Yeah.
And then talking to other friends who are in the like no bad good or bad food say like, I feel it's really helpful for people maybe with like disordered eating backgrounds and stuff, whereas like you don't want to be hyper vigilant about, but at the same time it just seems like it's to me, I also look at these like industries that I do feel like are almost intentionally making our food unhealthy, because especially when you look at other countries and you're like, well, why do we have all these things in our food that are mm, illegal in European countries, and they actually make like the products differently in those countries, so why wouldn't they just eliminate those ingredients that are illegal there here? And so things like that, where I do feel like, oh, I don't even want to support these companies with these products. And so I see a little bit of like, yes, I guess, like, you're trying to gain a healthy relationship with food, you're learning to trust your body. But on the other hand, then we have this black and white culture where people like really don't look at things in a nuanced way. And you can kind of go like, okay, no food's bad. All right, perfect. And it's like free reign, but which is also kind of something you wouldn't want, especially in our country
Yeah.
with the state of the health, right? So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I think when it comes to like the obviously, because I've done both. I mean, I came
yeah.
from a food freedom background, and when I ate, and because that's what you're really taught when it comes to diet and nutrition revolving personal training, is you just worry about your calories and everything fits, and you
Mm.
worry about your macros, and then you just turn into food freedom. So when I was my unhealthiest, I was eating in a food freedom way. Like I couldn't decipher what was good for me or bad for me. I mean, it only came to the point where I was like, I think I'm maybe I'm allergic to this. Like I don't know, like why am I always bloated? Why do I have acne? Why do I have migraines? And I couldn't pinpoint what it was. I mean, I think it's way more multifaceted than what a lot of, anti-diet nutrition and dietitians are promoting, like to say, were you coming from a dieting background when you're restricting all your food? Now we want to get to a point where you don't fear any food. I don't see how that's helpful for someone who maybe is struggling with mental health problems, because you're not getting to the root source of why they feel the need to chronically diet, and they don't have any sense of control, and they're not understanding the physiological addiction that can happen with these foods. Like
Mhm.
you have a higher chance of blaming yourself for a lot of the problems that you have with overindulgence, because you think that it's a you problem, when in reality it's the food was created like that.
Mhm.
So when I do consume something that maybe isn't the best, which I rarely do, I got to a point where I was like, well, that food was meant to be indulged, like I don't have to keep, like, I think it's disordered in its own way that you feel like you have to keep candy bars in a drawer somewhere to get a fix. Like, that's
Mhm.
weird. And you wouldn't, and in no other type of addiction would you tell people to keep the thing that they're addicted to in arm's length. If someone's
Mhm.
addicted to alcohol and they're really struggling, you wouldn't tell them, well, keep a beer in the fridge. It's no big deal. Like, you wouldn't tell people that. So why do we do it with food, especially food that has been linked to um, so many health problems? I mean, even early death. There's articles about how eating ultra processed foods has just been linked to just dying earlier. Like,
Yeah.
how are we going to say that's not a bad food? And does that make you a bad person for eating it? No, but it is a bad food. To say that we
Right.
never indulge in things that are bad is not helping anybody. But you do get to a point where, like, you're going to need a little bit of sacrifice and a little bit of restriction before you can reach a point of balance again. And now I'm at a
Mhm.
point where if I'm on a road trip and the only thing around me to eat is McDonald's, sure, I'm going to have McDonald's because that's what's around me. And I understand that this is not something that normally happens, nor is it something that I'm craving and need to get. It's just what's available. Like,
Right.
I'll probably not even feel good after I eat it. And I'm also supporting my body throughout life. So it's not going to affect me the way that it would have back in the day when I was having McDonald's, once or twice a month or something. Like, just so I
Yeah.
can keep whatever balance.
Yeah, definitely. I think it almost reminds me of like the elimination diet as well. When you take everything out and heal, and then you can reintegrate things that and they don't have as much of an effect once you get yourself into balance. And also what you were saying,
Yeah, and you don't even
like,
want it.
yeah, well, that's what I was gonna say too, is I feel like once you get, and I feel this way with alcohol too, where people that like just live a little kind of, do you ever live a little? It's like, I
Yeah.
don't like want to drink. I don't want to eat shitty food and not whatever, bad, no good or bad, but like, I don't want to eat foods that I know aren't having a good impact on my health and that don't make me feel good. So I don't feel restricted because I'm doing things that make me feel good and choosing things that make me feel good, not choosing things that don't. Same thing with drinking. It's like I just don't care to drink. I don't feel like I've adapted. I feel better. And it's not something that you feel like you're white knuckling, like, oh man, I really want McDonald's right now, or I really want to drink
Mhm.
or whatever. I'm just like, I've changed my life and I feel better for it. And so I don't have the desire. I really feel like our taste buds shift when we stop eating chemically addictive food and we're eating whole foods
A
that are
hundred
satiating
percent.
us. Like, you stop craving that.
Yeah, I mean that was my whole thing when I first started. I was like, I have to heal, so I'm gonna get rid of all these nasty foods. And then even now, like my husband, he when he has things that he used to really like love and eat, and obviously he started his health journey when I did. And that
Mhm.
was like all his doing. But even now, like when he eats something, he's like, ew, I used to eat this. Like, this is disgusting.
Yeah.
So yeah, your palate does change. I mean, I've spoken a lot about how these foods really hijack your palate, that we get to the point where, water talk on TikTok was a big thing where people
Mhm.
literally could not just drink plain water because their taste buds are so effed up that they can only enjoy flavored water with all different types of additives and things. So it's like we've clearly gone a little bit too far with all the
Mhm.
things that we're consuming. Like, I don't see healthy people that eat, a diet rich in fruits and vegetables and meats and yogurts and like real foods feel the need that they need to balance it out with like equally ultra processed foods. Like, that doesn't mean balance in my world exactly. Like, I
Yeah.
still eat brownies and cupcakes and all these things. I'm not making, and the other thing I freaking hate is like people will be like, make a healthy I don't know, cupcake with me, and it's like an apple dipped in dark chocolate. Like, that's not a fucking cupcake. Like, like, I still eat real cupcakes, okay? This isn't like
Yeah.
that. To me is diet culture. And it's
Yeah.
usually those food freedom accounts that are like anti-diet culture that are like, make a healthy 3-ingredient apple with
Yeah. They're it's like
caramel.
a
Like, what
lettuce
is that? Like,
sandwich. You're like, yeah,
if I
just pick
want
like,
a cupcake, I'm gonna eat a cupcake. That's it. So like, yeah, I just make it with better ingredients and it tastes great and it has frosting and I'll even add some no artificially dyed sprinkles, and it's great. And I can still do that. It doesn't need to be diet culture, it's so
Yeah.
odd.
I know you posted that I reposted when you were talking our food system is fucked, and the whole kind of
Yeah.
like it's not diet culture to want to eat whole foods, and it's sad, and and not every anti-diet nutritionist is like thinks whole foods are diet culture, healthy eating is diet culture, but like that one you shared with all the processed food, all food is processed, so you might as well just eat Velveeta. It's like, what the
What
hell?
does that even
You might
mean?
as well
Like,
eat Velveeta.
yeah,
There's
they try to minimize it. They try to like minimize it and put it in this like generalization. Like that's why they have like all food is processed, everything's a chemical. Like, okay, cool. So if I put, I don't know, bleach and water that are both chemicals in front of you, which one are you consuming?
yeah,
Obviously, they have different, they have different results if you drink one or the other. So for people to try to dumb it down and make it black and white, it's just not a black and white topic.
I also feel like people do it because they know that they're gonna get likes, and people are like, yeah, like cool, like fucking don't
Yeah.
eat Velveeta. Like I can just eat Velveeta. Like yeah, all food's processed. That's right. And it's like, I think when you speak like harsh truths to people, it's a little bit it hits different because it requires a level of accountability. Whereas, like, some of those accounts that are like, everything's processed, just who cares? It's this like enabling of a co-enabling of like not having to take accountability for our health. Like, let's all just like agree upon this ideology where we don't have to do the real work. It's weird. And I see it with drinking culture too, where I'm like, why are we normalizing these behaviors and everyone just jokes about it together? And it's like, it's not really that funny if we think about this for real. Like, we're all kind of enabling each
Yeah.
other to be lesser versions of ourselves, and everyone's doing it together, and it's just strange. But you also were talking about when we were talking about the call too, where we were talking about obesity as genetics and just things that are kind of blamed like purely on genetics, when in fact there's a lot of environmental factors that can be at play, and also
Mhm.
just conflicts of interest, like people, corporations and money, and corporations that are making millions of dollars off us depending on their solutions. And so, yeah, I thought that was a super interesting post that you made, just calling that out. And you also said that um, people in technology shouldn't own like all the farmland. Why do you
Yeah.
think
I
that Bill
mean,
Gates is buying all of the farmland in the United States?
I mean, there's so many reasons. It's really just to control. I mean, people think we have like this, we have so many choices. Like, we don't have choices at all. It's the illusion of choice. You go to the supermarket and there's 12 brands of pasta sauce that where 10 of them are owned by the same person. Like
Yeah.
it's this illusion. So now you have people in tech that buy farmland and then they're trying to test things and test how we can make our food last way longer, when they don't want to get to the root source of our problems and how to like
Mhm.
really look into regenerative agriculture. And
Yeah.
we're really destroying our planet. And it's not like we have no say in this. It's really these giant corporations that want to find quick fixes, which is like, let's come out with a peel and, coat all of our food with some unwashable wax that is made
Right.
out of harmful chemicals. Like, we're just going to kill us off I mean, at this point, we're probably going to kill us off before the planet's killed off. So
Yeah.
it's like the lesser evil, but they don't care because they're not even eating their own shit.
Right. I know it is. I think the illusion of choice is such a good
Like, you
point
think
too,
Bill
where it's,
Gates is eating this? No.
yeah, although he doesn't look the healthiest. So I'm like, dude, I don't want health
No,
advice
I mean,
from
no.
you. Like, why? And
Great.
even just like he's done other things too where it's just, I don't know, where people, it's feel like once you're like, all right, I don't trust that person. But just his, changing of the African agriculture to conventional farming practices, and it was like a complete disaster that he took away their indigenous farming practices and all of their native
It's,
like crops. It's
a
like, dude,
crime. It's
people
really a
don't know
crime.
this. And
He
yeah, it's
needs
like
to be in jail.
yeah. And it's just kind of wild and stuff like that. Like once you kind of learn about it and realize the pull he has too in medical regulatory agencies and stuff. It's like none of these things are exactly what we're kind of hoping that they are in terms of regulatory agencies, in terms of like advertising and marketing with corporations. It's like you really have to look beneath the surface to get a glimpse of like what's really going on. And I just don't think a lot of people, our society is structured in a way too where we're all super busy and like burnt out, stressed out. No one wants to be bothered, but it's like this is a byproduct of like systems that are disempowering you, that are making you not have the bandwidth to care about your own well-being. And you think like people are
Yes.
crazy for calling that out. And it's wild to me that like people calling things out to bring awareness to things that are literally damaging you, you're getting mad at.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, it's just people don't want to see it. People, there's a lot of people that work on the other side of things too. They're nurses and they're doctors and they're dietitians and they're food scientists and they're microbiologists, whatever the heck they may be. They do work in science, they work in the medical field, and they just see it so differently. Like they see it as so healing and whatever the case may be. Like this is so innovative, and environmentalists that are like, this is the next best thing. Like, yes, our food is going to last longer, so we're not going to have food waste. But like, we haven't even come up with like, you're telling me they can't kind of come up with a better way to like figure out our waste and like our waste management and how to turn our waste into something else and to turn it into fertilizer instead of spraying down all our crops with toxic crap. Like you're telling me they don't know how to do that, but they know how to make wax that makes our food last long. Like it just makes they know how to make meat in a laboratory, but they don't know how to
that's terrifying.
regenerative farm and do all these other like it's stupid. And then
Yeah.
it falls on us to like not use plastic. Like, are you kidding? It's so
You're
stupid.
like, "But don't use straws," because it's
Yeah.
not like,
Don't use a plastic. What?
yeah, like, I don't think this is our issue. I don't, but, yeah, no, I think it's everyone's issue,
No,
but
but think
it's like
about, I mean,
we
if you look at all the big brands, like you go to, like an Aldi, a Publix, a Stop and Shop, like ShopRite, Costco. Um, am I the one that's wrapping everything in plastic and shipping it out across the US on jets and freights and all these things that are pumping, you know, chemicals into our air? No. So that literally falls on the corporations. But you're telling me because I didn't use a stainless steel straw, which I do, that I'm killing the planet. Like it makes absolutely no sense. Like you can go to Costco and get plastic in bulk. So why don't you call
Mhm.
up Ziploc and tell them to stop using plastic, but instead it's on me for to not buy it? Like stop making it.
Yeah, it seems like we are constantly, like, creating solutions that create more problems as opposed to just, like, simplifying and
Yeah.
going to things that would be helpful, and even regenerative agriculture is a great example, like, so instead, we are, like, monocropping, spraying pesticides, like, that's creating more problems than just, like, utilizing the knowledge that we already have. Instead, it has to be something new to be
Mhm.
progressive. I feel like that why? Why does it have to be a new innovative technology that we don't know the long-term effects of? And now, we kind of are starting to with pesticides in our food and everything. But it's like, also, who wants to eat a vegetable that's like 6 months old because it has wax on it? Like that to me is scary.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
mean, the
want that.
same people that want to eat that are the same people that are consuming candy bars that don't expire for 10 years.
Yeah.
So if you don't see anything wrong with that, like there's gas station food that probably will survive an apocalypse.
Yeah.
So it's those people that just they don't care. If they don't care about that, like people want everything to be, you know, last long. I mean, you can find Twizzlers that probably won't decay ever. There's a
I know.
McDonald's sandwich out there somewhere that hasn't disintegrated or decayed at all in like 20 years.
There
Those are
is.
the same people that are okay. Yeah, they're the same people that are okay with this. This is why these things exist. So it's just we have to fight the battle and we have to just vote with our dollar and just keep, supporting the smaller businesses that are doing it right and
Mhm.
spend our money where it should be spent. And that takes
Yeah.
a lot of minimizing, like minimizing the amount of products that we use and shopping. Even for me, like at the beginning of my business, like I'm not Amazon, right? So like you're gonna get your product within a day or two, but Amazon, you can get things the same exact day. Amazon's able to do that, not me. But people compare, and contrast. So it's like if you really want to go and make change, you're going to have to probably wait for your package a day or two to get it from a smaller business versus just getting everything sent to you the same day on Amazon. Like those are little changes that aren't really going to take anything out of you doing it, but it does make a difference. So voting with your dollar and kind of taking the beaten path sometimes makes a
Yeah.
huge change. I mean, their money is language. We can talk about it all day, but they understand money. If it's making money, they can keep making it.
Mhm. Exactly. And do you feel, I always say that too, like voting with your dollar, because it's easy to be thinking that you can't have any impact. But if we say that the corruption of all these systems is based on money, then of course the most powerful tool we have is money and where we spend it, and being conscious of that, and spending wisely and investing in people that we feel good about and that have integrity behind their brands. So when you look at, the kind of different systems, do you feel like it's just financially fueled, or do you think there's like they're trying to kill us all?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of things, but the people that are the 1%, like they don't have money. If they don't have money, they don't have money to do anything. That's how any business works. So
Mhm.
if you, this is why I think when everyone went through this milk craze, where milk was like a really big subject, and that's why it made a big brand like Khalifa start to create an organic milk with only three ingredients, because people weren't spending I mean, they don't want to spend their money on things with gums and oils and all these things. They created one product out of probably a bunch of products that they have to be organic, because that's going to keep money flowing. So even if you don't drink Khalifa, like I don't drink Khalifa, but I found myself drinking it because it was the only option, the organic one that they created. That was the
Mhm.
only clean option that was available at my Sprouts. So now they just gained a new consumer base just for one product that they created. So yeah, money talks. So if people aren't buying their other stuff, they have no choice but to fold and create a product that people are going to buy. They follow
Mhm.
trends, they follow money. So yeah, do I think it's that simple? Yes and no a little bit, right? Because the people who can't afford to make choices, they're not going to be able to. But I think it does fall on the people who do have the privilege to buy and choose better, to make sure that now other people are going to have access to that. So for example, a lot of fast food chains started ditching the artificial dyes and the artificial flavor. There's fast food chains even in like the poorest communities. So that one change benefited all communities, even though they have to still maybe eat fast food. It's getting a smidge better for their health, because
Mhm.
all these big fast food companies like Burger King, McDonald's, Chipotle, etc. Like they stopped using artificial ingredients. So that's going to be super helpful all the way down the ladder. So it really does fall on the people who are financially more privileged, so that they can vote with their dollar, so that it hopefully trickles down and can help others. So I do
Mhm.
think it's a very systemic issue, and it's not as cut and dry as I'm kind of like making it seem right now. But money is the biggest factor here. So if
Yeah.
you have it and you have the time and you can do it, 100% do it. Like for example, like we have clean protein powders that are like $30. Is it easier maybe for you to run into a vitamin shop because there's one at like every other corner, and just pick up one at GNC or Vitamin Shop? Yeah, maybe, sure. But you're supporting GNC, you're supporting Vitamin Shop, which are much bigger corporations, versus a small business that, yeah, maybe you'll get it in 2 to 3 business days, but that's $1, $30 that's going to a small business that'll hopefully become bigger and more accessible to people, versus a big corporation that really doesn't give a shit what they're selling you.
Mhm. Yeah, take the money away from the corporations, give it to the small businesses. In that alone, them losing money, even if you're not investing in their cleaner products and you're just taking your money elsewhere altogether, they're gonna be like, oh wow, people are supporting these businesses because they are branding with integrity. They are cognizant of the things. So maybe at least they'll try to have a facade of caring and switching their ingredients. But yeah,
Yeah.
it is. I think voting with the dollar, with our dollar, is the most powerful kind of tool we have in reshaping systems, and just recognizing that we do have power in general. Because I think a lot of people kind of fall into that mindset of like, whatever, what am I gonna really do, you know? But
Yeah.
I did want to ask you a little bit and switch gears, because I know we're getting close to the end of our hour, but I wanted to go over slightly to talk to you about your own kind of sober curious path, because I know you talk a little bit about cutting out alcohol and how you just opt not to drink these days. And so I wanted to hear about how you decided to do that and how it's been for you and what contributed to your decision to go alcohol free.
Yeah, so I started as obviously a typical college party girl. I drank a lot. I would come to like literally work the next day still reeking of tequila. So I
Mm.
definitely had my party years. And then as you get older, you end up just drinking kind of on like special occasions or like dinner on the weekends with your girls. And it was just like a very social drinking thing. It wasn't anything where I was like, oh my God, I have a problem, because I wasn't even getting drunk at this point, but I was just drinking,
Mhm.
here and there, go out with my girls, have a drink or two, celebrate for the holidays, a drink or two. You'd have, people over, you have a glass of wine. Like it was just leisurely drinking. So, once COVID really hit and I was home more, you naturally start drinking less. I mean, for me, I drank less. I know maybe some people started drinking more, but I was more of a social drinker.
Mhm.
So I only really drank if I was around people. And then halfway through COVID, we started having like, people over. So we'd have, people here and there come over. We'll have like a board game night just because we were like obviously all kind of, secluded. And then I kind of picked it up again. Like I started doing the healthier drinks, if you will. It would be like the hard kombuchas and like the cleaner alcohols and things like that. And I would just like babysit one or two glasses, nothing crazy. And then I can't really tell you when I stopped because I just never picked up another drink at one point.
Mhm.
But I think it was probably like the following spring, so almost like 3 years ago, I think.
Mhm.
And I just was like, what's the point? I don't know. I just felt like it was stupid to sit there and babysit one drink. And like I started really asking myself, like, what am I actually doing this for? Like, okay, cool, maybe to like be social, but like who cares? Like I'm a social person to begin with, I don't really need the alcohol to socialize with my friends and family. Like that's weird. And then the second part was like, okay, maybe I'm just doing it so I don't get asked questions, because it is annoying to be like, why aren't you drinking and just have one drink and just one? Like, why are you such a buzzkill? Blah blah blah. And then I just realized like this is about me, and these people have to go home after and babysit a hangover, and I just don't want to do that. So I just kind of grew a little bit of thick skin, and I'm like, I don't need to do it to avoid questions. Like that's a stupid reason. And then I realized like even the one drink that I would have, it would just make me feel like so out of it. And I was trying to start a business at the time and like really go somewhere, and I was like, I really don't have the time or energy to like babysit a hangover or like a headache or like my tummy hurts for like a day or two. Like I just don't have the time and energy. So it was kind of a bunch of things at once that kind of made me stop drinking. And then obviously naturally like I got engaged and I got
Mhm.
married and we had all these life events, and I just was like, I don't need to drink to have a good time. Like
Yeah,
I'm
I
just
saw.
me. And if people yeah, I was like, if people don't like that, then that's their problem. Like I don't want people to like me just because I'm like a quote unquote fun drunk. Like I want to be fun for myself. I want people to like me for me and want to hang out with me for me. And did that cause a lot of, issues with people? Yeah, of course, because I think my choices make other people reflect on their choices and they feel insecure or whatever the case may be. But yeah, there was no like moment where I'm like, I need to stop drinking. It just happened gradually, where I kept making excuses to continue doing it, and the excuses had no like validity. There was no substance to the excuse. It was just like, oh,
Mhm.
I don't want to people to ask me questions, or oh, I don't like. They were just stupid excuses in my opinion. So yeah, that's kind of how I just quit
Yeah.
and never went back.
Yeah, I love what you said about I don't want people to be drawn to me because or want to be around me because I'm going to drink with them and be a fun drunk. I want them to appreciate me for
Yeah.
who I authentically am. And you said that you kind of received backlash because your choices made people think about themselves. And I think that's something that's so common. And I'm sure probably happens just even being someone who's super health conscious and kind of I think that can be even triggering on its own. So, for people who are trying to eliminate alcohol or work on their health, how did you navigate those relationships that you felt a little bit of weird energy projected at you based on your choices?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a very vocal person, so
Mm,
I tell people to just worry about yourself if they have a problem with the way that I conduct my life. Like me being drunk has nothing to do with you. And if
mm,
you think it has something to do with you, that's a problem that you need help with. That like you having fun is contingent on me having a drink is very odd to me. Um, but yeah, I just like things like that. I don't know. I've always been a very like set like person. When I put my mind to something, I really just do it.
mm,
And there was nothing it just came to a point where there was nothing anyone could say that would convince me otherwise. Like people would be like, "Oh, you're no fun." I'd be like, "I'm actually way more fun sober and you're actually not as fun as you think you are not
okay.
sober. So you're actually quite annoying. Now if we really want to talk about it. So there was just like a lot of things. Did I lose a lot of friendships and a lot of close, friends that I had? Yeah, because you start to realize a lot of people their main way of connecting is what I like to call disconnecting by just getting, shit faced drunk and going out and partying and where I'm more now a lot of my activities and ways to have fun are just much different. Like I go play a sport, I play pickleball, or I go to like a nice dinner with my friends, or we watch a movie, or we do arts and crafts, or we do a puzzle, or we just like hang out, go for a walk. Like there's just so many other things that I do now where who's someone who's the only way that they hang out is partying or getting drunk, they're just naturally not going to find the things that I do fun anymore, so they don't want to be invited to those things, and then I don't want to be invited out to a bar at 2 a.m. So you just start to really grow apart from certain people when you make certain choices. And this happens with anything. It happens when you get married, it happens when you get a boyfriend, it happens when you get a pet, or like when your priorities shift, it's going to show you who your friends are versus
Right.
not. So I don't think this is just something that's unique to drinking. It happens with everything. Like your choices
Totally.
change the people around you. So
Mhm.
it's not something that is unique. I'm sure people have experience this to some extent in some way, and it is unfortunate, but you do attract the people that you should
Yeah.
want around and have around. And now I just have like a beautiful community of friends who are also like or they either don't drink at all or they have a couple things here or like honestly I'll make mocktails and they're like I'd rather a mocktail because they just taste so good. So you really do find your tribe. So I don't really worry about it. Now I don't have to
Mhm.
deal with it, but back then I was just very like I don't really care. Like this is my
Yeah,
choice.
it is. It is wild to see how much like it does. And you're so right about it's not just alcohol, it's all shifts that can be,
Mhm.
that can cause transitions in relationships. And I was just talking to someone about this the other day saying people say like, "Oh, you find out who your real friends are like in your lowest moments." But I actually feel like it's the opposite because I think that who is actually happy for you when you're successful is shows a lot
Oh
because
girl.
when you're low, miserable people want to be low with you and happy people are supportive because they're just always supportive. Whereas like when you're happy, miserable people aren't happy for you. And when you're making positive changes in your life, it's like I think success and turning into the best version of yourself actually exposes people a lot more than your lows do.
Oh, 100%. I mean, this is since I started my business, my friend group now has done a complete 180 from because not only did I start a business, I got married, I moved to another state. Um, I got a puppy, I dropped alcohol, like I had a lot of life changes. And boy, when I tell you that like my friend group right now is completely different than what it was even 3 years
Mm.
ago, that's the damn truth. And it's not even all the time like a big falling out. It's just you're
Yeah.
just doing different things and you can't relate to people. Like when you know, even if you own a business or you have something that you're passionate about, you go to people that you can actually take your advice. You know, that's why when you become a mom, like you have mom friends because they're going to understand motherhood better than maybe one of your single friends. It's not to say that your single friends can't be supportive and so understanding, but unfortunately today that's very rare to find people that aren't going to like be, you know, she's like mad at you that you're doing certain things in life and they're
Yeah.
not, you know, like competition is rampant. And I think even more so because we have social media and you can really put your best foot forward all the time if you really want to on social media. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's a natural process to just grow and change and evolve and people can either do that with you or without you. But yeah, like kind of like you said, when you're sad, of course people are going to be there for you and you're going to be like, "Oh," but when you're doing really great, that's really tough too. So you really
Mhm.
get to see who your friends are and who really
Yeah.
supports you at both ends of the spectrum really. But you know, when you're doing different things, it's just going to attract different people, but that also is going to come with you have to make room for those people too. So you're going to end up dealing with getting rid of friends and family
Yeah.
sometimes too.
Yeah, yeah. Entrepreneurship is a wild ride in that way too, because just going through it, I think you don't realize like how meaningful even just like a like on something is when you're starting a business and stuff. And a lot of
Yep.
people, if they're not doing the same thing, they don't realize they're not being supportive, but it's like you're not being supportive. So it's all like you're so right about just on point about transitions in life in general. And yeah, I always say like normalize growing apart from people without animosity because it happens and like having that resentment is only going to hold us back anyways. But it is like moments where you're like, oh damn, I stopped drinking and I don't have these friends anymore. And I see that happen all the time, or I'm doing this and these people drifted away, and you kind of realize what your relationship was based on or lack thereof. Like you said, I love that connecting over disconnecting. So good.
Yeah, I'm just
So
like I have different friendships now. I need different people in my life. I don't need, I'm just like at a different place in my life and that requires a different type of energy and a different type of person around me. Like if I'm trying to get things done, I can't have somebody texting me like, "Oh, forget your work, like come drink with us."
let's
Like
get
that's
drunk.
so
Yeah.
unproductive for me.
You're like, also, I'm
Yeah.
literally building an empire on like a non-toxic lifestyle. So that's
Yeah.
not
Yeah,
on brand,
exactly. So it's
really.
tough.
But oh my gosh,
Yeah,
it's been
like
so
definitely
fun.
not on brand.
Yeah, you're like, nah, blacking out on Wednesday. I know it is. It's funny because I used to be probably like the most indulgent of my friends at when I was drinking. And so it's
Same.
wild when you're the one that drinks the heaviest and then you're the one that's like, I'm not gonna do this anymore. But it's something I also see with clients all the time because that's my focus is sober curious clients and helping them holistically. And so it happens so much, that relationships fall by the wayside. So
Yeah, I mean, I know I mentioned I love analogies, but I also think about it like when, like, even I don't have kids, but I know people who have children and they're like, you're really going to spark their imagination when you just let kids be bored. And I think that applies today too, where we are so used to numbing with our phones, with alcohol, with drugs, with relationships that
drama.
honestly, getting rid of yet another distraction like alcohol has really brought out like my love for really hosting. Like I love hosting dinners and like game nights and things. And when alcohol is out of the question, you really have to get creative with the way that you entertain people. So it's really brought out like such creative sides to me. Like my passion for cooking has been ignited. So you lose one thing, but you really do gain others. And again, it's all just distractions. So I think of ourselves as we're just little kids grown up, right? Like I'm only 30 years old, but I'm still a little kid at heart. So I think if we're just so used to distracting ourselves with the TV, with the phone, with drinking, with drugs, with friends, with all different sides of outside dopamine. We really forget like what we're capable of and what we can do. And I think we really hinder ourselves. And the people around us can hinder us. So yeah, I think I've really discovered new parts of myself since giving up alcohol.
Mhm.
Um, and it's been fun to see. Like I feel like I've just really reinvented myself in certain ways that I didn't expect. Obviously, I didn't quit because I'm like, I think I'd be really good at hosting dinner. No, but
Yeah.
you find out things about yourself that you're like,
Mhm.
wow, like this is, I didn't know I was creative like this, or I didn't know I was funny like this, like I was a little comedian. Like I didn't know these things, but you do
Yeah.
get to find out parts of yourself when you're done distracting and numbing.
Totally. I know. I absolutely agree. I always say that too with people when they're like, "Well, what do you do without drinking?" I'm like, "Focus on something else you can pour your energy into." And even what I notice is like I usually hone in on connecting with like one person at the party and have a way better conversation than I would have had,
Yeah.
Like there's just so much deeper engagement. Maybe it's like less more
Mhm.
deep with one person, like focus on who you can do, focus on, yeah, hosting and making it a really nice event for people, cooking something, whatever the case may be. But yeah, you have so many good little nuggets of wisdom. But I don't want to keep you
Thanks.
forever, even though I feel like I could keep talking to you about all this stuff for so long. But I really appreciate you coming on to talk about, Bill Gates and sober curiosity and non toxic living. All the things
No,
I feel
totally. Yeah,
so,
I feel like I've dabbled in a little bit of everything all the time. So I'm just kind of like a
yeah.
big book of random things.
And I just have to say, I appreciate people that like you sharing so much and just speaking out boldly about your beliefs and truths and the truths in the world that you see, and creating more space for people to do that. Because I think like one thing I see in our society is this like elimination of kind of diversity of thought. And I just really want to see a world where even if we don't agree, we can share our thoughts and be like, oh, didn't think of it that way. Like it would be so lovely if we could move in that direction. And I just really appreciate people who are brave enough to put themselves out there. And I know that it doesn't come without its own share of, struggle and like personal development at an accelerated level when you're kind of putting yourself out there and kind of dealing with all your inner work you have to do as an entrepreneur. And it's a lot. So I
Mhm.
totally appreciate you being you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you for asking me to be on here because I
Yeah.
really sometimes you just forget like what I even do sometimes, and sometimes like when I come on podcasts, I'm like, oh, okay, this is this is
No,
what I
you're
do
like
because
yeah,
it's so like
you're
integrated into my real life that
yeah,
I really do forget sometimes that I'm like why people even follow me. I'm like, what is? I get a little bit of imposter syndrome, so I do
yeah,
appreciate you even
yeah.
asking me to be on this because I really do appreciate it.
I was so happy. I'm like, oh, she said yes. I've just been shamelessly asking the people I really love on Instagram, like, do you want to do the podcast? And yeah, it is. You're a bad bitch, man. It's nice. It's really
Thanks, girl.
empowering. Same. I love it, girl. And yeah, I love that you do so much with holistic health, sober curiosity sprinkled in there. I think it's really cool for people to be able to see like alcohol-free living isn't consuming, it's like a piece of you, right? It's not like your identity. And that's really cool to kind of
Mhm.
shift the culture around alcohol-free living in a way that's just tied into being the best, healthiest version of yourself, as opposed to some level of like deprivation or addiction, which like no shade to that at all, whole nother arena. But yeah, I think it's really empowering, the message you're sharing. So thank you. And I wanted to say, um, where can people find you, and just kind of give a little promotion of yourself here and all the things that you have.
Totally. So you can find me at Healthillie on Instagram, on TikTok, and then of course, if you want to shop all things clean, low tox, you can find me at livehealthily.com. You can also follow us on Instagram if you're not quite ready to dive deep and you want to learn a little bit more about our products and the things that we do. But yeah, I keep it simple. That's where you can find me.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much for coming on. And thank you everyone for
Thank
tuning in.
you.
And we'll see you next time. Bye, y'all.